Please take your seats. Time 100 Next is about to begin. Please welcome Time 100 Editorial Director, Dan Maxey.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome. My God, I'm not actually famous, don't worry. I am so excited to be here with you tonight for our first ever Time 100 Next, surrounded by so many people who make my job seem boring. You are making art and leading movements. You are founding companies and flipping seats in Congress. Meanwhile, I spent the past week making sure all of your names were spelled and punctuated correctly in time. You're welcome, Awkwafina, with a WK. Seriously though, all of you are here tonight because you are doing extraordinary things, because you are shaping the future, because you aren't afraid to reject conventional wisdom and try something new. Now, I get it. To a lot of people, maybe even some of your bosses or your investors or your agents or even your peers, these goals might seem hard, risky, expensive, impossible. But as I look around this room and as I look at this list, I see people who defy odds every day. People like Jesus and Mero, who are rewriting the rules of late-night TV. People like 30-year-old Tim Ellis, the youngest member of NASA's Space Advisory Council by 2 decades, who is building a machine that could 3D print rockets on Mars. People like Amanda Wen, who created a Bill of Rights for sexual assault survivors and has now passed laws in 21 states. People like Marsai Martin, who this year became the youngest executive producer in Hollywood history. Marsai actually couldn't be here tonight because she's too busy being 15 and famous, but we love her anyway. And people like Varshini Prakash, a leader of the Sunrise Movement here in America, and Carlos Alvarado, the president of Costa Rica. Yeah. Who are forcing their governments to reckon with climate change. Not in 10 years, not in 40 years, right now. And you'll hear from the president about that later tonight. Of course, changing systems can have consequences. One of your peers, Edward Leung, helped inspire thousands to fight for an independent Hong Kong. But tonight, he's in prison, serving time for his protests. And Bobi Wine, an upstart presidential candidate in Uganda, has been jailed, tortured, and threatened. His crime? Running on a platform of hope and change against an opponent who has held power for 3 decades. Yet Bobi and Edward persist in their missions. In fact, Bobi is with us here tonight, somewhere. Because they know, as so many of you know, that big, sweeping change can start small, with one word, one vote, one act, one song, one story. And this list, this night, it's about your stories, because they're the ones that move all of us forward. And on that note, I am proud and excited to introduce the 2019 Time 100 Next.
All right, you ready?
I think there's an overwhelming amount of talent. I just feel like there's so many amazing young people right now.
For me, I think equality means inclusion and diversity being a kind of a staple as opposed to a requirement.
Freedom is what's at stake in the idea of whether a county clerk gets to tell you who you ought to marry.
I would like to say everybody has gone through moments of being underestimated.
Never forget.
Our country has a commitment to fully decarbonize starting now.
Strike with us. Across the planet, people are unifying.
You owe it to your colleagues to be interesting people. Get out of the office.
Hallelujah!
Everybody deserves to be seen and heard.
At the age of 17, this is the new star.
I'm basically the Lizzo of China right now.
That is a wrap and
Please welcome Time National Correspondent Charlotte Alter.
Whoa, this is really cool. So, okay, as you just heard, I am a national correspondent here at Time. That means that I've spent the last 3 years traveling across the country talking to people about American politics. And I've sensed, and my reporting has proven that there's a generational shift on the horizon, but that change is only reaching Washington very slowly. Here are some facts that might blow your mind. Right now, our government is dominated by people who were born in the 1940s. That means the president, the Speaker of the House, and most of the most powerful senators in America were born before the invention of the bikini or the hula hoop. There are senators regulating tech companies who are older than the chocolate chip cookie. That one I have some trouble with. But we're at a tipping point, as this room shows. From climate change to gun violence to economic inequality, young people are demanding 21st century solutions to 21st century problems. That change, as we see here in this room, is already happening. There are now 26 millennials in Congress, and 1 is running for president, and they're disrupting politics as we know it. This reporting has turned into my upcoming book, The Ones We've Been Waiting For, which is out next February. Whoever is cheering, you rock. But is available to pre-order now, so don't lend, recommend. It's about the rising generation of millennial political leaders, what they believe, why they believe it, and what America might look like when they're in charge. I focused specifically on political up-and-comers for this project, including some who are in this room tonight. But looking around this room, it's so clear to me that in every realm, from science to sports to television, a new generation of leaders is redefining influence and guiding us into the future. We have so many incredible people here in this room tonight that we're actually going to ask several of you to come up on stage and share your own thoughts about what makes you optimistic for the future. I'm excited to welcome our first 2 moments of inspiration. One of the most exciting voices on television, Ryan O'Connell, followed by one of the newest stars in Congress, Representative Lauren Underwood. Please join me in welcoming Ryan O'Connell.
Wow, she came early. Okay, so growing up, the only list I thought I would be on would be TV writers who used to wear leg braces. So this is a pretty big deal for me. It's no secret that the world is a hellscape right now. But nights like tonight remind me that there is hope, that the world is still taking steps forward instead of steps back. My salute tonight is to anyone who, like me, who was born into a world that wasn't built for them. To anyone that saw no seats for them at the table and was actually like, fuck you, move over, I'm coming in, and I'm hungry, honey. Specifically to anyone who's disabled. Now, not to be a bitch, but society is a giant ableist asshole. Sorry to get all liberal arts girl on you. And the concerns and desires of disabled people are rarely put into consideration or thought of. But we're no longer waiting for them to consider us. We're doing it ourselves. People like Josh Feldman, Shoshana Stern, Jillian Mercado, Andrew Gurza, fellow Time 100er, Ali Stroker, Ryan J. Haddad, Aaron Phillip, Niall DeMarco, and so many others. We're throwing out the old world, and together we're building a new one, and it's gonna be chic. And it's also gonna be handicap accessible. What a thought. Anyway, thank you for having me. This means the world. XOXO.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. I'm a newly elected representative, flipped a seat in Northern Illinois, and have the honor of representing the 14th District of Illinois in the United States Congress. And when I thought about what inspires me, I think back to so many families around this country, people who are expecting a child. And when you're expecting a child, that should be a time of preparation, anticipation, maybe a little bit of nerves, but you shouldn't approach that upcoming delivery with dread, with paranoia, and with a settling in your stomach that makes you worried. Yet, for so many women in this country, that's what they face. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die as a result of childbirth in the United States, a statistic that has remained unchanged for the last 30 years, my whole lifetime. And so when I got to Congress, I knew that I needed to do something about that. Whether you are Allison Felix, a world champion, gold medal Olympian, a boss on the track and in real life, whether you are Serena Williams, the greatest athlete of all time, whether you are Beyonce Knowles, the queen. These ladies have had near misses that they have been public about, where they had pregnancy complications that endangered not only the lives of their children, but themselves. I have a friend, Dr. Shalon Irving, who 3 weeks after giving birth to her baby girl Soleil died as a result of hemorrhage. Thinking about a woman named Kira Johnson, who was a pilot who raced cars, who died right after giving birth to her son Langston. And I think about Shalon's mother, Wanda, Kira's husband, Charles, and all the many women across this country who are speaking out as a result of this issue, these untimely deaths. And that gives me the motivation to move forward, the sense of urgency to not just legislate, but to save lives. And I know that with this generation of millennials in Congress, we're gonna be able to do just that. I raise a toast, raise a drink to all of you change agents, visionaries, and folks that don't accept the status quo. Congratulations and thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that was awesome. So one of the things that I find so inspiring about hearing Ryan and Lauren talk about their moments of inspiration is that what we're seeing right now is individual, personal transformations that, when taken all together across all these different industries, amount to people changing the world. And that's what this night is all about. Hearing from people who give us hope about what gives them hope. And that's why I'm gonna ask our next honoree to join me on stage for a brief conversation. You saw her in films like Crazy Rich Asians, Ocean's 8, The Farewell. I'm getting the sense you know who she is. Those are all bona fide hits, obviously, but I'm telling you, that's just the beginning. We're gonna be hearing about her for a very long time. Please welcome Awkwafina.
Yes. Oh, I'm mic'd. That was good. Good. How's everyone doing? How you doing? All right. Nice. Okay. Cool.
So I have a question. When you were a little kid, did you think that you would be famous?
When I was a little kid, no, not at all. I think, I remember having trouble. I loved movies. Movies were like my thing. I loved Air Bud and my cousin Vinny. Shout out. I loved Air Bud, but I remember really not knowing, I remember with Air Bud, I remember thinking, wouldn't it be so cool if, I was the kid in Air Bud? But then I realized, that wouldn't make any sense because they had to recast the parents. That no one, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be. So it was, no, I have no idea. Yeah.
And so how does it feel different than what you thought it might feel like?
I think that, when you're growing up and you think about fame, I think that you think of something, this kind of, otherworldly, unrealistic, crazy thing that happens to you. But, the funny thing with fame is that, you don't really, you have a choice to be changed, and I think that, I still definitely hate myself all the time, and things like that. I still have a lot of anxiety. I still have a lot of self-doubt, and I'm still always striving for more, and I think, that's the thing about fame. It doesn't change you. It just happens to you,
So that anxiety and self-doubt, can you tell me about what that's like?
It's horrible, but a very intrinsic part of being human, I think. You know, one of my first projects was a movie, Ocean's 8, where, you know, I was cast I was very new and thrown into the mix with these absolute icons. And I remember thinking, you know, I don't think that I'll be able to fill the expectations of whatever I did to get hired. So yeah, I face imposter syndrome a lot, but I think, you know, a little bit is healthy, and a lot can lead to being quite debilitating. So you have to be careful with that. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier sort of what you saw on screen and how it seems like you felt like it didn't seem like there was a place for you there.
Yeah.
How did you experience stereotypes when you were growing up, and what did it feel like to break those stereotypes with your work?
You know, the only way I can describe growing up with stereotypes is walking into a room with strangers and having all the strangers know what they think that they know what you're gonna sound like, how you're gonna act, what your background is, the food that you eat, the things like that. But I spent a lot of my life absolutely shattering them, not actively, but literally just by existing. When I walk into those rooms, they hear my voice and they're like, what kind of voice is that? And then, you know, and I think that, you know, those things, they lead people to think that you're one-dimensional. And so I think that when we show that, like, it's not just the stereotypes, but your idea of something that I'm not, you know, I think that it awakens people a little bit.
And
Thank you. Thanks.
You started off making these incredible YouTube videos.
Incredible is subjective, yes.
So I'm curious how you think technology has sort of opened doors for different types of artists to make work and find their voice and get their work out there.
I think it's opened immense doors. I mean, you know, with the internet and especially YouTube and what it was back in the day, a lot of people called it the Asian Hollywood, because you'd have these Asian stars on there that would be getting millions and millions of views, but that was really their only platform. It was a way for you to say, I can make something in my bedroom and I can put it online, and, you know, maybe it'll get watched, and there's no gatekeeper, there's nothing, you know, barring that. And I think, you know, that has led to so much. It's really, you know, how people are discovered through that is also, you know, kind of redefining this landscape of what we know of entertainment.
And you made these rap videos, and now you're an actor, and I have to ask you, like, which do you like better, acting or your music, and how does it feel to be balancing both?
You know, I think music was always something that music was something I had to learn. I had to learn how to produce music, how to work the computer and the program and stuff like that. And I will always continue to want to learn about that. Acting at the same time is also something that I'm learning. But yeah, I guess it's different. I don't know if I'll have a choice over how much acting I'll do in my life, but I know that I'll always make music, you know?
So it's like under your control a little bit more.
Well, it's my passion, so I'll always come home in the middle of the night and do it. I know it'll be there, but I don't know about the other stuff.
And so I want to hear about your new show on Comedy Central, which has a mostly female writer's room.
Yes.
What has that been like? How has it felt different to be working in a crew that is so overwhelmingly female?
You know, it was great. I mean, I don't think that was the initial plan, was to do, you know, kind of an all-female. We have 2 excellent men on our team as well. But, you know, I think that process was really surprising to me, because there was a belief that, well, you know, they're not out there. You know, these kinds of writers, they're not out there and whatever. And they're out there. I saw a lot of them. And I think that it's really, you just need that first chance. You don't have that first chance. You're not through the door, you know, then you know, yeah. So you need that.
So in an interview with one of my colleagues, you use this really interesting phrase, which I think is so smart, the mirage of diversity. Sort of a like surface level type of diversity where people look different, but they don't necessarily come from different experiences.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you think that diversity in Hollywood right now is kind of stuck in that mirage phase, or is it sort of moving out of that?
I think it's quite the opposite. I think that the mirage of diversity is, you know, when I started auditioning, there were roles that, you know, it would call for different backgrounded people, but their characters had no dimension. They were literally just in the frame, you know?
Right.
And so I'm seeing a lot less and less in that, and I think what I'm seeing more of, and why I'm optimistic about where we're going, is I'm seeing people that are writing for diverse characters written by diverse characters, you know? So it's like people are telling their own stories now. And I think that there's a lot more of that. You know, I was in the movie The Farewell, written and directed by an Asian American woman, a story about her life. Thank you. And you know, to be a part of that was something that I know probably didn't exist a lot. And I'm very lucky that I was able to experience that in my life, yeah.
So you've done comedies, you've done a heist movie, you did a drama, you have this TV show coming out. What is next for you? What is
DJing.
DJing?
No, I just wanted just to make that name so much more annoying. DJ photography. No, it's like I do a lot. I wear a lot of hats. I love DJing though. It's fun. I don't know. I feel like there's a train that I'm on, and I'm along for the ride. So I hope that good things happen, and I think that if, you know, what I really want to see is I want to help inspire the next generation of people. I think there needs to be more. Thank you.
Well, I think thanks to your example, there almost certainly will be. I'm wondering, you know, before we end, what is, you know, is there anyone or any sort of anything in particular that is making you really optimistic about the world right now?
I mean, you take a look at that list. You know, it's incredible. Yeah. I think that we're going through a lot right now as a society. But what I think I've seen is incredibly brave and bold voices that I think come out and speak up. And I think that the generation that we're in, we're not scared of that. And so I think it's going to become even more so that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Awkwafina, I'm so, you know, this is really exciting.
It's cool, the setup.
Yeah.
It's like your living room.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, my living room looks like this.
Got a C shape. Love that.
So, you know, we have time for one more question, which is like, I'm wondering, what do you think people are not paying attention to that they should be paying attention to?
Oh, man. I mean, I think that there's so many ways to answer that.
I know.
And I'm probably going to think of something really stupid. But honestly, I think that people should understand other people more. You know, I know that sounds like really broad, but I think that other people should understand where people are coming from and why they believe the way that they believe. And I think that if we can understand different perspectives, we'll grow. And also marine biology.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Time. All right. I'm going to check out your book, by the way.
Please do.
She said it wasn't boring backstage. She was like, it's not boring. So that's promising. I like that.
I hope so.
Great.
Anyway, wow, well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
For being one of the Time 100 Next.
Thank you.
And,
all right.
And you're awesome.
Cool.
So
do we just stand here until the lights go down, or?
No, I have to do I have to introduce another.
Oh, okay, I'll go. Bye, guys.
Awkwafina, she's the best. Here's where I introduce the next thing. Okay, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone again for being here tonight and to celebrate the Time 100 Next honorees. This, as you've heard, is a night to be inspired and to be hopeful by all of these other people in the room and to be reminded of our collective power for change. I'd also like to thank our founding partner, Citi, for their support in making this night a reality and for their own work in striving for progress. So.
Do you know what you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher, an engineer, a doctor. I want to be a vet. A vet? Awesome. So, I'm gonna be talking to you about a couple of things and asking you questions and how you feel about it. Okay. So, what if I told you that, in general, that women get paid less than men?
That would make me feel mad. I'd rather have what the boys get. That's kind of confusing.
Confusing?
Yeah, it's not fair.
I'd be a little bit shocked at that because I think that women and men are equal.
I feel really angry because it's like they don't want girls to look strong.
That makes me feel like I want to do something about it.
I love so many things that girls are usually allowed to do, but I feel like there's just more to us than looking pretty. I guess some people just don't see girls doing that.
And do you see yourself being a boss someday?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. I do want to be a boss.
So that was moving and alarming, but mostly moving. For our next moment of inspiration, I'm thrilled to introduce two of the girls in that video we just saw. Please welcome Caitlin and Kennedy.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Kennedy Hines, and I'm 11 years old.
And my name's Caitlin Mara, and I'm 10 years old.
We're honored to be in the room with so many impressive adults like Bobby Wine, Ali Stroker, and Coco Goff. We're here with you tonight because Caitlin and I, along with lots of other kids of city employees, participated in a video that captured the moment we learned about the gender pay gap between women and men. As you can see, we felt confused, angry, surprised, and a little disappointed. How is it fair that on average, women get paid less than men? And of the top 500 US companies, only 33 have female CEOs. I was taught that I can be whoever I want to be. I want to be an engineer and the next Tiger Woods, a critical and strategic thinker, able to use my earnings from golf to help pave the way for the next generation of girls who want to be golfers.
And the truth is, change isn't happening fast enough. If we kept up the current pace, gender equality here in the US wouldn't happen till the year 2227. And that's 208 years from now. And that's certainly not okay with us, and we know Sadie agrees too. I feel proud that my mom works at a company trying to speed up closing the female leadership gap, because we should all have equal opportunities. We may not be ready to start our careers now, but I want to be a boss. Maybe someday I'll even be your boss.
Yeah.
But until that day comes, it's people like the men and women being honored tonight that inspire me because of their courage, creativity, and determination to shake things up and transform the future for the better. And it's each and every one of you here tonight to help close the leadership gap now, before young girls like me and Kennedy take our first steps into adulthood and get our first job. Do it for us, for your children, your nieces, cousins, neighbors, or even the young girls you've never met before. Help open the doors to young women in your life to use their voices, to empower them to do things that they are scared of or might make them uncomfortable. Trust me, doing this speech right now isn't easy, but wow, it makes me feel awesome and strong.
Caitlin, my thoughts exactly. So, let's raise our glasses. Ours are of ginger ale, but in a toast to time for the celebration of progress and of people from so many different backgrounds coming together and proving that we are at our very best when every voice is heard, every human being is included, and everyone is valued equally. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, I'm calling it now. They're going to be on the list next year, or like in 2 years. So in the spirit of closing the gender gap, I'm so excited to announce our next moment of inspiration, a billion-dollar cosmetics company and the woman who started it. Please welcome Emily Weiss.
I'm so honored to be here tonight with so many and just incredibly inspiring people. 24 hours ago, I was just a person trying to figure out how to build a startup in sweatpants at 7:30, and then at 8 a.m. I was that same person seeing myself on the cover of Time magazine. So that was a pretty crazy moment. Still trying to figure out how that goes. When I founded this company, when I founded Glossier, I set out to create a different kind of beauty company. We wanted to be a force for optimism in an industry that has historically made people, mostly women, feel that they aren't enough. So rather than telling people what products they need to buy in order to achieve a certain look or a definition of beauty, we decided instead to listen to people and give them the tools to write their own beauty narratives. 5 years in, we've had the privilege of hearing from millions of Glossier customers and fans spanning all generations of life. Tonight, I'd like to take a moment to talk about teenage girls. We meet them every single day in our stores and hear from them literally every single minute on our social channels. These young women blow my mind. They are thoughtful, inclusive, and kind, even to complete strangers on the internet. They are unabashedly and unapologetically themselves, whether they're talking about their skincare routines or closing the gender gap. And in times of extreme uncertainty, they are courageous, resilient, and unflappable. Teens today care more about politics and social issues than previous generations did. 7 in 10 Gen Zers believe the government should be doing more to solve the problems of this country. Nearly half of all teen girls say that climate change is extremely important to them personally. I'm looking forward to next year, which will be the first time when the younger generations, voting age Gen Z and millennials, could become America's biggest voting bloc ever. And while younger voters have historically turned out in lower numbers than every other age group, I have a hunch that we're going to see something very different from these young Americans in 2020. If you need an example of their spirit and their resolve, just turn to Emma Gonzalez, Greta Thunberg, or Little Miss Flint. It's on all of us to listen to these young voices and amplify their message. These young women are a relentless force for good in a society that so desperately needs their passion and fresh thinking. So my toast tonight is to these teenage girls. To girls everywhere, may you know how much power you have to change the world. Thank you.
When my son is going to be my age, is going to look at me and he's going to ask what happened. And I want to give him a good answer. The prospects of the future, if we don't act now, are very scary.
He is
is Carlos Alvarado, a former journalist and novelist, and at 38, the youngest democratically elected leader in Costa Rica's 200-year history.
He announced his own plan to make his country carbon neutral.
It's the only time in human history that such a challenge for a planet has been put upon us. It's a matter of the survival of the species, but also a marvelous opportunity for us to unite together.
Please welcome the President of Costa Rica, Carlos Alvarado, and Time climate correspondent, Justin Warland.
So tonight is all about the future. It's about inspiration. And in this time of really bleak headlines about climate change, Costa Rica is really an inspiration. Since President Alvarado announced plans to decarbonize the economy in March, dozens of countries have followed. So my first question is, how do you do it? How does a small country like yours inspire others to take action on climate?
Well, thank you all, and thank you, Justin. I believe we need to be consistent with action. Costa Rica comes from a legacy that about 61 years ago, we abolished the army. Also, 70 years ago, we established a model that allows us to currently have 99% of our electricity being clean and renewable, which is quite a base to trigger further development to tackle climate change. Also, we managed to enforce a forest system that for the past 50 years, we have managed to recover our forest coverage, going from 20% to now almost 50% of forest coverage, which is a nature-based solution. So being consistent with action allows us now also to take that action into a next level. And that's what the decarbonization plan is all about, taking action to tackle climate change to a next level.
Right. Well, I don't know how many of you have been to Costa Rica, but from my times there, it's one of the things I remember is the roads, the challenging roads to get through. You have to use a bus, or people use motorcycles. You mentioned, you've decarbonized the electric grid, but the roads, transport is much more difficult. How are you going to do that?
Well, there lies the great opportunity. Having an electric grid that's 99% clean and renewable, we can plug it into transportation and have a quick shift from fossil fuels to electric vehicles or hybrid or even hydrogen-driven vehicles. So that's a great opportunity to start lowering our carbon footprint and using renewables, still creating jobs and having innovation in the economy. For example, we're going to build 2 electric trains, given that are plugged into this matrix. Those trains will be absolutely clean. And also, this will benefit from the environment and for health people. This is going to produce more jobs as well. So it's a win-win-win scenario, and that's why we're going that direction. Also because it's an ethical decision. If there's a threat for our planet, then it's ethical to take action and to tackle that.
One of the way that opposition to climate measures is often framed is about trade-offs. People say, why address climate when you have housing shortage or healthcare to take care of? But you've spoken, you just spoke about why that's not the case, why you can't think of it that way. How do you make the case to skeptical Costa Ricans who might hear you talking about climate change here, but think, why aren't you dealing with a housing shortage?
Yeah, or employment. Lots of people come with that. They say, why you talk so much about climate change? Our needs have to do with agriculture, or have to do with migration, or have to do with jobs in the immediate. My first approach is listen, because within those realities of people and their problems are the true keys touching climate change. For example, in the rural areas, the crisis of jobs and agriculture, it's very related with drought and with flooding, which is highly correlated with climate change. So when you explain that to people, they start saying, okay, so we also need to address that. And then to protect jobs as well. So the mindset is like reset and people start thinking about my close reality of my community, how can I address it and change it, but also tackling a larger reality, which is the global reality of the climate crisis.
Right. I'm curious, you are, in addition, you're obviously a politician, a successful politician, but you are a novelist and a former journalist. How do you think about the work that you do in forming the narrative around climate change, right? We noticed that people are talking about, say, being carbon-free differently than they might have been a year ago since you've made your announcement. How do you think about that question?
Well, in the case of climate change, science is very important. But when you think about it, a discussion about, for example, 1.5 degrees, that's not heart-inspiring. That's not talking to the heart. So when I talk about climate change, I relate a lot, for example, with my son, because he's 6 years old, and he's going to live in that world. I mean, it might be very tough to live in that world. So I want to provoke change now, so I can look at him at the eye and say, I did the best, and actually we managed to not having this problem for your future. So that's an inspiration for me. It's the one I love. I mean, it's my kid. And also thinking about my grandparents. They had a legacy. They gave us a legacy in Costa Rica. No army, universal health care, clean, renewable energies. And that was a generation that most of them, none of my grandparents, finished grade school. But that generation managed to build that system. So it's coherent for me and responsible as well, taking that legacy and taking it up to a next level. So that's very inspiring. So providing a narrative that gives passion, I believe it's a step closer for change to happen.
Right. You mentioned some of the things that came in generations past. Can you talk a bit about laying the groundwork for what you're doing now? I mean, what needed to come to help you come before where you are now to help you do what you are doing now?
Well, the work of people that were before us it's very important because set the ground for us being the ones leading a way on climate change. There are lots of ways, but we need to be together in order to make this change to happen. But it's also triggered on me the idea that it's not only about one generation and one lifetime. I mean, we received a great legacy. And we're thinking not only on our generation, but on the ones to come. I mean, this generation is the generation probably that has the most strong responsibility in the history of humanity, basically in our hands. So there's a Chinese saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. So that moment actually is now. Taking action now is going to make a difference for the ones to come. And when you think in terms of generations, then it leads us to action.
Costa Rica is playing a key role in the international climate talks. I'm curious if you could tell us, a bit about what you expect to come, and what role, how are you trying to leverage your authority to shape that conversation for the better?
We're trying to have a conversation that's more integral, more holistic. In what sense? Climate change is related to poverty. It's related to inequality. It's related to topics about gender. It's related to topics about human rights. I mean, it's a broad discussion we're having as a world. I used to have a minister, when I was minister in the cabinet, I was Minister of Social Affairs, he was Minister of Housing. And he said, reality is really complex, but whenever we talk about something, you see poverty and I see housing, but people have broad realities. So instead of thinking of our own silos, let's think integrated about our whole problems so we have broader solutions to them and bring more people to the discussion. So that's the approach that Costa Rica is bringing to the discussion.
Is there a program that does that? Just one example that people might take home that is an example of integrating those different concerns.
Well, during the pre-COP that was held in Costa Rica past October, we exercised having those broad discussions, bringing, for example, inclusion, gender, and inequality in the climate change. For example, the land, the discussion about land. In Costa Rica, more than 80% of land is owned by men. So it's pretty unequal in terms of gender. So that's a topic, but it's also very correlated, as I mentioned, in agriculture and climate change, and very correlated with poverty and job creation, and then migration. Migration in Central America it's a great driver for migrations from Central America is lack of jobs in the fields, highly correlated with climate change. So if we tackle climate change and build prosperity in those communities, I mean, we're fostering the future for the whole region. And that's the aim we should take, cooperation, making lives better for people all around the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for doing this. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
So climate change is obviously a very bleak topic to cover at times, but I have to say one of my favorite parts of this job covering climate is talking to leaders from small countries that really have reshaped the conversation, that are leading the fight when others aren't. So thank you to President Alvarado. We have two final moments of inspiration tonight from an Olympic gold medalist and international role model, Reisman, and best-selling author Jason Reynolds. So please welcome Reisman first.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to be here, such an honor to share the night with so many incredible people. We're living in a time defined by technology. We can wake up in the morning and live a busy, productive, interactive day entirely through our phones. It wakes us up, delivers the news, keeps our schedule, connects us to people all over the world, entertains us. We don't even have to get out of bed. And how's that working for us? We're so connected, we're alone. We're so distracted, we've lost ourselves. 24/7, 365, much of our reality is rendered through a screen. Hate crimes, child abuse, school shootings, sexual abuse, bigotry, corruption, cover-ups, it surrounds us. We do need to pay attention when bad things happen. We need to get at the truth through real investigations and honest journalism, so we can understand what really happened and believe in a solution. And we need accountability. Justice matters. And so does today, and so does tomorrow. We can't change the world through justice alone. We need to change at a more individual level. If you want to feel hopeful, spend time with children. Children believe, they laugh, they love. Children are proof of an organic goodness. We all start as children. When my faith in others was shaken, I looked inward. It was difficult and scary, but once I pushed past the self-judgment and fear, I rediscovered a deeper goodness. Each of us has the power to look inward and reconnect with our true self and rediscover a deeper goodness. This is our source of compassion. This is the most powerful fuel for change. This is what makes me hopeful. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. Thanks.
So here's the thing. When I was a kid, my mother used to say, your purpose in life is to figure out what your purpose is. And that's a complicated conversation to have with a 7-year-old. And so I'd get stressed out, and I'd be like, well, how am I supposed to figure this out? How am I supposed to know what exactly I'm put here to do? My mother would then sort of backtrack on the statement, and she'd say, well, the upside is every human being happens to have the same purpose. So the real tricky part is you got to figure out what the vehicle is for that purpose to come into fruition. So then I'd say, well, Ma, what makes me special? I mean, what exactly is that purpose if we all have the same purpose? And my mom says, I believe every human being was put here for service. That the purpose for all of us is simply that, service. But the vehicle in which that service comes forth, that's where it gets complicated. Perhaps you're a young basketball player bringing entertainment to young folks and inspiration. Perhaps you're two brothers from the Bronx who prove over and over again that an authentic point of view is golden. Perhaps you're the South Asian women who change the narrative representation on the internet and late night TV. Maybe you're a young black chef who adds a little extra flavor to the world, or a young black fashion designer who adds a little extra flavor to the world. For me, my conduit, my vessel, my vehicle for service is literature. Specifically, literature for young people, and more specifically, literature for and about young people of color. So my toast is for them. But I gotta be clear, not just the ones who are convenient for you to love, not just the ones who are on a college track, not just the ones who are interning in your programs, not just the ones that y'all feel safe around, but the ones who are complex and challenging. The young men and women who are locked in juvenile detention centers, the ones in alternative schools and last chance educational facilities, the ones on the block with their pants sagging, tattoos on their faces, long hair and sneakers, who talk all kinds of ways and you don't understand what they're saying because you have yet to learn to see them. All of them deserve our love. Every single one of them. I am not exceptional, and nor are you, by the way. Right? It's the truth. They sit in your classrooms, they're in your neighborhoods, they're on the basketball team in a local rec center. Everywhere that we're afraid of them, that's where they are. That's where you, the future you are. So even though we're here tonight to celebrate the time 100 next, the truth of the matter is, it don't matter if we're next, if we ain't looking out for the next. If we don't figure out who the next is, it's over for us. My mama always say, you can't be a king unless you can be a kingmaker. So my toast is for all the young folks in the world. I want to say thank you to the young people in this room. You are truly the antidote to hopelessness. And it is my job from here on out to make sure that I show myself approved and to ensure that I hold my colleagues, my peers accountable to make sure they do the same thing. All right? All right. Salute. Have a good night.
Let's give it up one more time for Jason and Ali and all of our amazing speakers tonight, and all of you guys in the room. I know it's a cliche to say you feel inspired, but I look at this room and I hear the people speak, and I truly, truly am inspired by you. So to those of you watching via the live stream, thank you for joining us. And to those of you in the room, we now encourage you to mix and mingle, because that's what tonight is about. You never know who you're going to meet and where those connections might lead. And finally, thanks to our partners. Please don't forget to visit the Citi photo booth right over there and the United Airlines booth to redeem your free mileage gift. Who doesn't love free miles? We'll see you and have fun. In 30 minutes, Camila Cabello will be performing, and we'll see you back here then. But until then, enjoy the night.